come out to play. Warriors, 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 come out to play.
Everybody packed?
Yeah.
All of you stay behind me. I'm gonna take them out to the sand.
What about you? You ready?
Let's do it.
Andy Pearl found a protest by an unusual kind of gang.
They call themselves the Magnificent 13. They're a volunteer group, usually found patrolling the Muggers Express, number 4 on the IRT line. But today they were out in front of the Lowe's State One Theater, protesting the showing of the Warriors. They say it's a dangerous picture.
We've seen what it's done to people, and we read in the papers about the violence that's been inspired by this kind of movie. And we just don't think children should be allowed to see this movie, let alone adults. We just got over the gang thing about 5 years ago. There was another upcropping of gangs, and we don't want to see that happen again.
The movie is rated R. And with an R rating, that means that if you are not 17 or older, you must be accompanied by a parent or legal guardian. This rule is not being stipulated in any of the theaters that we've seen.
Hey, Joe, how old are you?
I'm 14.
Did you buy your ticket?
Yeah.
Did they ask you how old you were?
No, they didn't ask me at all. You know, you just get the ticket and that's it. You go in.
Are you aware of younger kids, younger than 17, coming into the theater without parents?
When they're caught, they're thrown out, that's all.
But that has been happening.
No, not necessarily.
Paramount Pictures has asked the 670 theaters showing the Warriors to put on extra security.
The manager of the theater refused to talk before our cameras, but he did tell me that since the opening of the film last week, an additional 15 to 20 men had been put on to tighten up security.
The latest outbreak of violence associated with the film occurred early yesterday at the IND subway station at 42nd and 8th. Police say 12 young men went on a rampage, jumping turnstiles, terrorizing and knocking down passengers after seeing the film.
Paramount Pictures says the incidents of violence associated with the film are really isolated cases. Theaters in the Bronx and Queens showing the film said they've had a number of problems.
If there was ever a place in need of a hero, it's the city of New York. It is fitting, then, that this was the birthplace of an organization known as the Guardian Angels. Certainly heroic, though somewhat controversial, the Guardian Angels voluntarily serve as a sort of adjunct police force. The Angels place themselves between the criminal and his victim, sometimes at the cost of their own lives. Founded in 1979, the Guardian Angels were mobilized by this man, Curtis Sliwa, a street-savvy visionary determined to combat the seemingly endless wave of urban crime.
It's a dangerous thing, but in a lot of the neighborhoods that we come from, they've already taken the streets. We live behind bars on our windows, multiple locks on the doors. They've already robbed us of our dignity and freedom, so we don't feel that this is very much of a risk, because just walking around minding your own business is risky enough nowadays.
To get a real picture of the difference the Guardian Angels can make in a community, one only needs to visit their headquarters near Times Square. Nicknamed Fort Apache, this angel outpost was literally wrestled from the drug dealers who menaced the theater district. This is, this thing here. What is this?
Well, this is where the drug dealing operation used to take place. This is actually a grocery store, a crack store, because all the junkies did was come and they put their money in here. They could buy their crack pipes, crack in their vials. You could ask for black top, red top, gold top, your variety. Yeah.
But contact with subway crime has brought injury to at least 3 Magnificent 13 members. Sliwa himself was badly hurt trying to prevent a rape. Another of the original 13, Carl Smucker, got into one situation that left him with a broken jaw and helped change his mind about the group.
I couldn't go out anywhere because my teeth were wired and I couldn't eat anything. I had to drink all liquids for a whole month. And I had time to think things over. And I realized that there was a big difference of opinion between the way I wanted the subway program to be run and the way Curtis wanted the program to be run. I think he wanted a more violent approach than I really wanted. I felt that he was taking it too far. I felt that we should concentrate on the actual patrol of the subway and actually being out there on a consistent basis than finding things that would catch the news' attention.
The patrols never know when trouble may pop up, but claim to have prevented a rape and 2 muggings in their first few months of operation. And while the hot moments of actual violence are rare, the nights are filled with minor skirmishes.
Don't worry about it. I'll become with it. Just remember that. Remember what? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You respect me, I'll respect you. Yeah. I'll go first. I didn't mind all night. I was just walking. I talked to any way I want. I wasn't talking to you. I wasn't talking to none of y'all. I just said they feel me. That's it. That's all I said. If I was talking to you, I would went right in front of you.
If that kid turns around and says something to him and they get into a fight, the Magnificent 13 is wrong.
What do you think about the idea in general?
It's not a bad idea, but, you know, an incident like that just goes to show you. It's not the right thing. They're not professionals. Just because somebody says something to them doesn't mean they have to get angry.
Curtis, what was that all about?
I had watched a fella come down the stairs and he had a few curt comments to make. The fella's a member of a gang that we ran into. It's called the Crazy Homicides. And they make their prey on trains. So they particularly hang out in the Coney Island section of Brooklyn. And I have a group down there that deals with them on a continual basis. So whenever we run across them and they give us any kind of guff, it's sort of like, you know, a reaction, because in the street, all right, as opposed to, you know, the suburban type logic, if you back down in the street, all right, to a group like that, I may never run across them again, but the group, the Magnificent 13, the ones who patrol in Coney Island, they're going to have to deal with a fella like him and the guys that he tells about his adventures with this.
February 13th, I announced that 13 young men would begin to patrol the city's subway system, and one day there would be 13,000. And before I could get that last word out of my mouth,
they're inexperienced, they really know nothing about what they're doing. Someone's going to get hurt, and I think it'll all come to a head maybe when one of these kids gets killed.
And so the call to arms for all the cops was, arrest them. You see them, cite them, write them tickets. People were coming to the McDonald's from Brooklyn, from Queens, from other parts of the Bronx, from Manhattan, even Staten Island to join. And this was great, and we put them through a training program. And they started subway patrols in their own areas. And all of a sudden we began to slowly grow. But in the interim, I was getting locked up, other guardian angels were getting locked up, set up by the cops to just try to so decompress us, so depress us, that we would give up these patrols late at night into the wee hours of the morning. Our numbers had grown, so we were no longer 13.
The Guardian Angels. They started as 13 kids with a plan to fight street crime. Now they've grown to more than 1,000 from New York to Philadelphia, Atlanta, Los Angeles. Across the nation, the Red Berets are helping the cities in fear.
People like Stallone wanted to take pictures with us, Trump. People were just coming to us. The dark side of the Batman as he emerged, we recognized this sort of new creation of Batman. Some of it was attributed to the effect of the Guardian Angels in the streets. The Watchman series attributed to the Guardian Angels. So many things that I had no idea what the origin was, attributed to the effect that the Guardian Angels were having not only on our culture, but our way of life and this fight back mentality of being independent and autonomous. And it was sort of like David versus Goliath. And I see how the gun goes back, and then all of a sudden the flames are coming right out of the barrel of the gun, and it's heading towards my lower extremity, And clearly I've been hit, but I don't feel jack diddly squat. I've never been shot before. Shot at, yeah, but never shot before. And then all of a sudden he raises the gun and he shoots it again. And I see the fire coming out of the barrel of the gun. But this time I feel pain, incredible pain, cramping. The most incredible cramping I've ever had in my life. I can't even breathe now. Now I've been shot twice, so I'm bleeding like a sieve. And the gunman had hollow point bullets, so when upon impact they hit me, they started shredding everything inside before they tried to make their way out my back. I used the seat behind me as a trampoline, and I dive in the direction of what I think is an open window. The gunman has now put the .38 in my back and clicked off his final shot, and upon doing that, pushes me out the window. And the assumption is, I think, from the driver and the gunman, is he's dead on arrival. There's no way he's going to survive that. Well, guess what, John Gotti Jr.? Let me ask you this. If you're such a man's man, right? You see all this damage? You see all this?
You see them with red berets. They're now all over the world, more or less, in all the major American cities and in Europe as well. And when you see them, you get a nice, secure feeling in your heart because they're walking the streets unarmed, little walkie-talkies just to keep in touch with one another, but they do an awful lot of good in cities all over this country. In any event, their leader now has had some trouble in the last few months. 2.5 weeks ago, the latest incident happened on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. Guardian Angel founder Curtis Sliwa shot 4 times in the abdomen, back, and leg area after he was ambushed inside a taxi on his way to WABC Radio, where he and his wife Lisa host a morning radio talk show called Angels in the Morning. The motive or reason behind the attack is still unclear, but it is suspected now that the assault was in retaliation for the Angels' crime-busting activities. Released from Bellevue Hospital, we're very honored to have him here today. They just completed their first radio show together since this all happened, and here they are, Curtis and Lisa Sliwa. Have a seat. Well, all of us felt sick in our hearts when this latest ambush happened, Curtis, and
this
so
was the
happened.
second, right?
Yes, just got back myself yesterday, and here you are. You came out of the hospital yesterday, and you know, you look pretty good for a guy that's been through what you've been through.
Well, I got to tell you one thing. Hospital cooking is actually better than my wife.
That's the good news.
So
That's the good news.
Even though I had 6 bullet holes in me and all kinds of Tupperware attached to me, you know, I never knew Tupperware could actually be used for these kinds of purposes.
Were there 6 bullets?
Well, 6 holes.
6 holes.
And actually 3 bullets that ripped through me at different angles in different portions.
And then
But
came out.
I am the luckiest guy in New York to have survived 2 attacks within a matter of 3 months and still be walking and talking and cracking
good for you.
Weisenheimer 100.
You know that every morning he gets up early, goes to the corner candy store and picks up the newspapers and hails a cab. And now
Like most New Yorkers.
Yeah, like most people. And this cab knew you were coming, right? And made itself available. You jumped in.
Well, what had happened is obviously this was a professional hit. This wasn't that wanton, senseless violence that I'm used to. For, you know, 13 years in the Guardian Angels, I've had my fair share of rhubarbs and trading knuckles with people. I was stabbed in England while organizing in London. So I'm used to the violence. But this, they had stolen a cab, jerry-rigged it, were literally laying in wait for me, obviously had observed my patterns. I was grabbing the morning tabloids because, you know, I needed my fix of the New York Post to get me pumping and jumping.
Absolutely.
And after reading the front page, I said, oh, no, and I saw this cab laying right there. So I said, let me grab this cab now. Who knows when I might get you another yellow. Held it down. And boy, I had an immediate X-lax attack because the moment that I sat down in the cab, you heard the doors lock and a gunman popped up from the front side of the passenger side. He had a .38 caliber long nose, and all he said was, take that, you son of a you-know-what, and he started firing rapidly into my body.
Wow.
And
Tell
you
us what
couldn't
happened
get
at
out
that
because
point.
you were locked in.
Did you wind up in the front seat because the doors were locked? Is that how you managed to get out of this cab?
Well, there was no partition. They had taken down the partition, had taken out the meter. When he first fired the first 2 shots, which ripped through my stomach and then ripped through my legs, I thought I was a goner. My only chance was to try to hide behind the driver and obviously not give him a shot because he was trying to now do me in. He was trying to shoot me in the head. But after a series of maneuvers by the car, because it was rapidly gaining speed, maybe from the power above, it had to be God, I felt this cold flush of wind in my face and said, this knucklehead left the front window open. I don't know how long it's open, but I'm going to dive for my very life. And what I did is, as he was aiming at my head, I flew through the partition with an elbow, hitting him in the head. That just jostled him slightly, but it allowed me to edge my way through the passenger side of the window in the front, and I was hanging half in, half out. And that's when they tried to pull me back.
As it's speeding along, the cab.
Speeding along, I'm desperately lunging out. They shoot me in the back, naturally, and try to drag me back in. But I hit a partition from a nearby parked car that knocked me the rest of the way out. Rolled about 10 times, and at that point, obviously, they took off like bandits.
What a story. We got to pause. We'll come right back with more in just a moment.
Friday on Live, basketball great Karl Malone.
We're talking with Curtis and Lisa Sliwa, the founders of the Guardian Angels, about Curtis's recent attack. And so in any event, did you get a look at this guy who did the shooting?
Well, the guy who shot me was wearing a mask to conceal his identity, and I only saw a side profile of the driver. But hopefully there's a $25,000 reward out there and growing that they'll mess up somewhere along the way, even though they're professionals, and they'll be brought to justice.
Are you happy with the police investigation so far?
I have to say I'm really not. If it had been a police officer shot in the line of duty, they would have been tossing everything in this town upside down. I think when you have a citizen crime fighter who's organized now throughout the world, you have to show some of that same oomph, or then citizens feel as if they're being short-shrifted.
I know Lisa was upset when the story first broke about their investigation, and in fact, there were some indications here that some of the cops didn't take it that seriously, at least according to the New York Post.
They didn't take it that seriously. In the first 3 days, there was very little done in terms of the investigation, and that's the prime time to talk to witnesses, to talk to all of the people in the neighborhood that might have seen what happened to him. But we're hoping that the people will come forward. I mean, we've received thousands of cards and letters from people all around the country. We want to thank everybody, the prayers. I mean, he's putting on a brave front. This guy has got 2 plastic bags, a scar that goes all the way down here, 2 bullet holes in each leg, and he's here right now because of all the prayers of people that have hoped that he gets well and that he recovers, and we're praying now that we get these guys.
And my Aunt Mary's chicken soup. That's the best penicillin in the world.
Curtis, do you have...
He's like the quintessential New Yorker.
You can't stop kidding around.
I know, that's a...
Do you have any idea who did this? In your heart of hearts?
I've been on the podium lately. You know, we have a morning radio show at WABC here in the city, and I've been going after organized crime and the drug dealers in our city and other cities, talking about how when our kids are slamming and jamming that evil stuff into their veins, these are the people responsible, from John Gotti right on down, and really been going hot and heavy at them. And, you know, sometimes they don't just deal with it like dandruff. They decide to get across a message. We had a journalist here just 3 months ago, Manuel Del Dios, publisher of El Diario, that was killed, and there's not even any leads by major drug cartels. It's a dangerous state of affairs when, for your First Amendment right of free speech, you catch 6 bullet holes. But you know something? They're not going to stop me. Nobody in this town ever did. Nobody ever will. And I will not move. I will improve this city.
Good for you.
You're not going to do it.
Well, now there were some reports about some kind of a marital problem.
That you were in different apartments.
At the time. Could you shed any light on that?
The apartment that Curtis was at is the Guardian Angel headquarters. It's a place where we used to live. And when we got the radio station, we took another apartment that had hot water, no mice, no rats. And the ceiling not caving in on top of us, and so we used that as an office. And he had been working late the night before, and he works into the night sometimes, and just goes right from there to the radio station.
So that's why you were separated that night. You know, it is remarkable what you've been able to do. How many members do you have now?
We have 5,000 members in 67 cities.
How many countries?
England, Sweden, Australia, Canada, about a total of 6 countries.
These young
overseas.
people wearing the red beret, walking around just trying to maintain law and order.
And when you people see them out there, understand these young men and women, no weapons, no payment. They're doing it because they believe in our country and they believe in the right of everybody to freely walk the streets like you and I used to when we played stickball, Johnny on the Pony, Ring Alivio.
I remember it well.
And we didn't have to worry about dodging bullets. That's the kind of America we want to get this back to. And it's up to us young people, us young huckleberries and whippersnappers, to give you old-timers a little bit of peace of mind in your final year.
You think the police would be grateful for the help.
Curtis, God bless you. You take care of yourself now, okay? Lisa, you're the best.
Thank you, Lisa.
Curtis, Lisa Sliwa, the Guardian Angels. We'll be back with Tanya Pinkins in a moment.
Sliwa is the Republican nominee for the 2021 New York City mayoral election. Sliwa was born into a Catholic family of Polish and Italian descent in Canarsie, Brooklyn. He has two sisters. He attended Brooklyn Prep, a Jesuit high school from which he was later expelled, and graduated from Canarsie High School, a Brooklyn, New York City public high school. In his youth, he worked as a delivery boy for the New York Daily News, where he was awarded the title of Newsboy of the Year and a trip to the White House after he saved several people from a burning building while on a paper route. Prior to founding the Guardian Angels, he was night manager of a McDonald's restaurant on Fordham Road in the Bronx. In May 1977, Sliwa created the Magnificent 13, a group dedicated to combating violence and crime on the New York City subway.
The comments, you're being labeled on Yeshiva World and other websites as being anti-Semitic for comments he made 2 years ago. Can you address what was going on over there behind the scenes?
Oh, well, that was a battle with the Reform Party. I was the chairman at that time, and it was about educational standards. I've since been meeting with all the groups that have been mentioned, and obviously we'll be able to discuss that during the course of the campaign, because that's certainly going to come up, whether yeshivas should be regulated by the state and the city, as the Constitution requires statewide, or whether they should be able to go it alone. But I'm certainly having a number of conversations with people.
And any apology in order?
I shouldn't have used some of those words, obviously. It was in the heat of a political campaign. But what Jewish people should always know is Curtis Sliwa was always there. When Crown Heights was in riots, the Guardian Angels and Curtis Sliwa was there. When there were attacks during Hanukkah, Curtis Sliwa and the Guardian Angels were there. When all of a sudden the attacks in Riverdale took place, Curtis Sliwa and the Guardian Angels were there. But don't call me an anti-Semite. I don't want my two sons, who are Jewish, my middle son who was just bar mitzvah, to think their father is an anti-Semite, because I'm not. We have some disagreements. We'll discuss them. We'll air them out. But the Jewish community has a friend in Curtis Sliwa, and they always have, and they always will.
Okay. Now, with the school thing, when you say that Jewish people moving in upstate, they don't pay the taxes, that's because they send their kids to private school. Don't you look at it as an independent? You call yourself an independent, and we're saving billions of dollars to the system by going to private schools, and which are better also.
Well, that's what we're discussing right now. We're comparing the analytics. They're educating me. One thing I know yeshivas do, I've been in plenty of them, is they teach you to learn. We may agree to disagree ultimately, but I'm certainly having dialogue now, and I will repair whatever damage was done by the statements I made in 2018.
Appreciate their attitude, which was improve, don't move. We are not going to abandon ship. We are not feckless. We are not weak. We are not going to fold like a cheap camera. We believe in the Old Testament, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And even though I'm a Roman Catholic, and I've been trained in the New Testament, it's the Old Testament that obviously guided me in developing the Guardian Angels. So when they came under attack, it was clear to me there was no gray areas like the politicians would say, oh, it's more complicated than you would know. There was one group that was correct, the Lubavitch. They were being victimized. And the black marauding West Indian youth were wrong. They were the enemies of society and the enemies of the Lubavitch. And I told our black and Hispanic Guardian Angels when we got there, it's us and we now. You either stand together and fight for what's right, protecting these Lubavitch, even if it means having to face off with your own brothers, your own sisters, your own blood, your own ethnic, your own racial groups, or take your beret and T-shirt off, and I never want to see you again cross the doorstep of the Guardian Angels. And nobody turned their beret or T-shirt in, and we stayed there for 3 months, morning, noon, and night, escorting the Lubavitch, protecting the Lubavitch, and at times battling the horde, the mob that was taking advantage of the crowd, until finally David Dinkins woke up out of his coma, his apathy and indifference, and 72 hours later put down the riot. In that time, I got a chance to visit 770 Eastern Parkway, the main shul, the main synagogue. It was a Saturday afternoon, the presentation by the Rebbe. It's Sabbath, so there's no audio capacity, no microphone. And all the Lubavitch are like little kids, the men nudging one another to try to hear the pearls of wisdom dripping from the Rebbe's lips. To me, he looked like an old guy who was barely capable of thinking or processing thoughts, but they thought he was God's gift to the world, a Mashiach, one who would return, would be resurrected. I didn't buy any of that. But they said, ooh, The Rebbe's looking at you, Curtis. In the back of the room I stood with a whole bunch of Lubavitch. I say, he's not looking at me. Oh, he's looking directly at you. He's summoning you forward. I say, he's not looking at me. He's looking at everyone else. In fact, I don't even think he can see 10 feet in front of him because he probably has hardening of the arteries and cataracts. No, he sees you. And they parted like the Red Sea for Moses and brought me to the front. And he was babbling and davening nonstop in a bizarre sort of way, almost like a whirling dervish to a point, but a verbal whirling dervish. And he gave me one Rebbe dollar, which he had given to some others who were lined up in a queue, but they bumped me to the front of the line. And then he gave me another Rebbe dollar and thanked me for the work that the Guardian Angels had done to protect the Lubavitch in the midst of the riots. Ironically, when I was shot in the back of the cab in the summer of 1992, the Rebbe dollars, which were in my wallet, were soaked in blood, except not his photo, which had been inserted on the photo of George Washington, which is the Rebbe. Now, make of it what you may. Maybe some of you are saying, oh, that's Madonna's Kabbalah, mystic, Lubavitch, Orthodox way of the shtetl years. Make of it what you may. I'm just telling you what happened.
Neighbors stopping to say thanks as the Guardian Angels patrol the streets of Brooklyn. The famed volunteer crime prevention organization has beefed up patrols in areas with large Jewish populations, like here in Crown Heights, as anti-Semitic attacks are surging.
Whenever people wanted to blame their troubles, personal or public, on anyone, it was always the Jews. So it's almost like we have a moral obligation to make up for historical anti-Semitism.
Curtis Sliwa founded the Guardian Angels, feeling a moral obligation to help others, driven by his Catholic faith and upbringing. They became known for patrolling the subways when they were dangerous, but they've always gone where they're needed. And right now, that's Brooklyn.
It seems almost like every decade there's a wave of this anti-Semitism which is expressed with physical violence.
Hate has been on the rise, the NYPD reporting a 26% increase in anti-Semitic crimes in 2019. Here in Brooklyn, Jewish people have been attacked in the streets and swastikas have been drawn. So the Guardian Angels are responding, and locals are grateful.
There were a lot of tough times, and they had our back, and we're forever grateful for them for that.
Brooklyn Rabbi Noam Gross says the Angels have always helped the Jewish community. He's grateful for their continued assistance. He gave Curtis a Rebbe dollar, a highly valued item to the Jewish community, given out by a top leader as a reminder to help others. Curtis keeps it on him as he patrols along with the mass cards of his mother and father. But he doesn't really need a reminder to continue helping others. It's part of him.
You see? I'm having a campaign meeting with my #1 supporters, the pigeons. I grew up with pigeons on the roof with my cousin Vincent. Hey, Boston Bowl, these homers. Now I'm with the street bird of New York City, who will officially be on the flag of New York City. When I, Curtis Sliwa, am elected mayor of the city of New York. That's right, except we're going to have to impose birth control on all your pigeons, you know? That's the way we can control your population so you don't overpopulate. But don't worry. How do we drop them, spay them, and neuter them? I haven't figured that one out. But I will before I become mayor. I will.
Still looking for us?
We found what we're looking for.
No. It wasn't us. It was them. The warriors.
You warriors are good. Real good. The best.